Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Animal Park. I'm Ben Fogle and I'm out in Kenya to join some of the Longleat keepers out here to see the animals they care for in the wild. Now behind me is Lake Nakuru, home to up to 1 million flamingos. Just some of the amazing wildlife we're hoping to see.
And while Ben is out in Kenya looking at flamingos, I'm here at Longleat where I'll be bringing you all the latest stories from the house and the safari park. Here's what's coming up.
Out in Kenya, it's a matter of pride for lions not to be surprised. So do you think they'll know that we're on our way?
Definitely. I know wherever they are, they know that they've been approached.
The Longleat lions need a flu jab, but they don't like to take their medicine.
That's a good shot from Brian.
That was a very good shot.
And why on earth would a giraffe in the wilds of Africa behave like this? That's all coming up, but we're going to begin with those flamingos. The flock at Longleat was only started 2 years ago, so Mark Tai, who looks after them, is keen to see them out in Kenya and has come to Lake Nakuru with Chris Campbell-Claus, the manager of Kidgio Reserve.
Yes, what an amazing sight.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it?
Absolutely awesome.
Fantastic.
Well, I've only got 42 flamingos back at home. And,
42?
How many do you reckon are here?
Ooh, well, here, 1 million.
1 million.
The reason they're all here is that this shallow lake is in the Great Rift Valley, which runs for 3,000 miles from Syria in the Middle East right down to Mozambique and features 30 volcanoes. The volcanic rock and high evaporation make the water extremely alkaline, ideal conditions for the blue-green algae that the flamingos feed on.
It's just a perfect feeding ground. The lesser flamingo are eating the algae, and we're mostly seeing lesser flamingo here. The greater flamingo will eat the shrimp instead. Fascinating, isn't it? Watching the beak
filtering
back
through.
around. Yeah.
Their beak inside has got what's called a lamellae, which is like a filter, and they use their tongue as like a pump to pump the fluid and the food substance between the filters, and then they eat what's left. And they obviously hold their head upside down and just filter the water through.
The Flamingo Pond at Longleat can't compare with the 15 square miles of Lake Nakuru, and the water quality is quite different too.
Well, at Longleat we're quite lucky because we've got the freshwater stream that runs through, and we do get a lot of freshwater shrimp in there. But their majority diet is a zoo pellet, which contains the carotenoids to make their feathers go pink. But obviously in the wild, you know, it's a different story. They actually have to go and look for their food. They're spending more time in the water than ours do. Ours tend to only sort of be in the water for short periods in the morning and the evening, and then in the day they're out on the bank.
In fact, the flamingos here spend up to 12 hours in the water every day, feeding and wandering about. But they often get together to perform courtship and other elaborate social rituals.
Looking quite special, aren't they, all moving together?
That's what they'll do. You know, obviously you know about how their sort of just dance patterns and things. Yeah, yeah.
When it comes to mating, flamingos lay a single egg and will only feed their own chick. Since they all look rather similar and flamingos don't see very well, that could be a problem. So, incredibly, they identify their chick from all the other birds here by the sound of its voice. If they survive to adulthood, they may live for up to 50 years. But there'll always be someone waiting for them to die.
A couple of Marabou Stork in the middle. Actually, the Marabou Stork are feeding off dead flamingo. When the Marabou Storks flew in, I noticed all the flamingo moved to the side, and they'd obviously beamed in on a dead bird, and now they're feeding off it. That's quite common. Here's another one going down into the water now. Fish eagle would come and prey on live birds occasionally. I've actually even seen baboon rush down the shore and clobber flamingo.
Really?
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
But, inevitably, the biggest threat to their survival comes from man.
there is pollution coming into the lake from the township. It's trying to be minimised, but in the long term, it's quite a serious concern that it could be lost to flamingo.
Flamingos have been stalking the Earth for about 50 million years now. And places like Lake Nakuru, which was designated a national park in 1968, are vital to their future, as well as that of many other creatures.
It's hugely important to the whole bird biodiversity here. You know, there are 420 species of bird around this lakeshore alone. So maybe it's a reason, more than just protecting flamingo, it's a reason to protect all species of bird here. It's one of the spectacles of the world, actually, for bird life. It really is.
As the keeper in charge of the flamingos back in the safari park, Mark has done a lot of homework on how to look after them. But it's no substitute for studying them in the wild.
It's difficult sometimes. I mean, you see pictures in books and programmes on TV, but until you actually sort of see it and hear it as well, so close up, it's quite amazing. It really is seriously fantastic to see.
The landscape back in Wiltshire may not be as wild as Africa, but the animals most certainly are. Well, as you can see, I'm up at the Lion House this morning and I've come to meet Head of Section Brian Kent, who is going to be giving Charlie's Pride some medicine. Morning, Brian. How are you?
All right, thank you.
What's wrong with them all? Why do they all need to be given medicine?
It's basically a flu injection that they have to have yearly.
Right. Oh, sort of
Cat
booster?
flu. Yeah, booster,
okay.
yeah.
And, I mean, I know that domestic cats suffer from cat flu, but I had no idea that lions would too. What happens to them if they get it?
Well, they can get really seriously ill or even die.
Really?
And that would affect all of them if one gets it.
So it's contagious. It will spread between the pride?
It possibly could spread from this pride to the other pride, so it's safer to do it.
You could lose the whole lot?
You could lose all of them, yeah.
I mean, and the signs of cat flu, is it similar to human flu? Do they get sort of runny noses and want to take to their bed forever?
Basically, in a way, yeah. I mean, you know, it's noticeable.
Yeah.
They get very lethargic, runny nose, whatever, eyes. And like I said, you know, it can affect a whole lot of them.
So a simple booster like this can prevent it?
This will help prevent it, yeah.
Right.
I mean, it won't possibly stop it, but I mean, it can prevent it.
The best you can do.
Yeah, that's all we can do, yeah.
Now, the big question, I suppose, is if you take your own cat to get a flu jab at the vet presumably just tucks the cat under his arm and injects it. Half-ton lion, big teeth, big claws, how are you going to do it?
Slightly different to that. I think the vet would be very happy if I turn up.
No, exactly.
We're basically going to use a dart.
Right.
Which put the cat flu in here, if I can keep my hand still.
So that's the vaccine
That's
itself.
the vaccine going in.
Right. OK. There it goes.
And then, basically, that goes into the blowpipe.
Right.
And then
So you're at a safe, respectable distance?
Yes, I can't exactly get in there and
do
it by hand, but...
Yeah.
And then just basically blow that into the lion's muscle of the leg.
Wow. And you're a bit of an expert at this, are you?
I wouldn't say that, no.
But you've
done
had
it a
a
few
lot of
times.
We'll come back to see just how expert Brian is. But with a free healthcare package and their own house, the lions of Longleat are thoroughly spoiled compared to their cousins in the wild. They even get meals on wheels delivered to them 3 or 4 times a week, and it's usually prime beef. Out in Africa, they have to kill to eat. And while the menu includes a wide choice of antelope, they usually choose zebra. The Lewa Conservancy in Kenya is home to both the common plain zebra and the very rare Grevy zebra. Less than 2,000 Grevies survive anywhere in the wild, and nearly 20% of them live here. Not surprisingly, they live in smaller herds than the plain zebra, so they're easier for the lions to take on. Geoffrey Cheggy is the chief scientist here, and by analysing lion faeces, he can work out just how many of each kind of zebra are being killed.
Last year we had almost 50 Grevy zebras that were eaten, and that is very, very serious because we have slightly over 430 Grevy zebras. So 50 compared to 430, that's a very, very high number to lose in just 1 year.
I've come to meet Belinda Lowe, who heads the research on endangered species here, to find out how that affects the Grevy zebra. So how do they differ from common zebra, I suppose?
Well, you can see that the plain zebra have got much thicker stripes. The Grevies have thinner stripes with white bellies, big round ears, and they're much taller.
The ears are incredible, aren't they? They look sort of Mickey Mouse-esque.
Yeah, and this is a really healthy breeding population. And ultimately, we want to use this population to restock other areas. So it's probably the key population now in the world. And also, you can see here there's so much grass on Lewa. There's plenty of cover for predators.
Yes, that was the other thing I wanted to ask. If they're predated by lions, does that not mean there could well be lions around us now?
There could very well be lions here, yes.
But you think we're safe enough?
I think we're OK because we're in a pretty open area.
And there's a lot of very tasty-looking Grevy zebra
yes,
around,
I think they'd probably go for them.
The zebra don't appear to be worried, but the rangers do need to find the lions as part of their daily patrol. So I've come along with the Longleat keepers. It's too good a chance to miss out on. For head warden Keith Harris, meeting them face to face in the wild would realise a lifelong ambition.
I think for me, lions epitomise Africa. They call them the king of the jungle, but the power in them and the fact that they work together, one of the few cat, or the only cat that they'll actually work together as a team, and the way they do it and how they do it is so impressive, and the sheer strength, and it's marvellous.
But head of Pets Corner, Darren Beasley, isn't used to big cats. So, before he came out here, Darren spent some time out in the lion enclosure with keeper Bob Trollope.
No, I feel quite safe in the cage, and I know Bob knows his animals, and they're getting meat. I mean, look at that, they'd rather eat this than me, I'm sure they would. But it's just the size, actually, to be honest.
A few weeks on, Darren's out in Africa. There could be a lion behind every bunch of grass, and there's no steel mesh to protect him. Now, Darren, I have to ask, at Longleat you're used to looking after the slightly smaller animals. Today we're out tracking lions in a very open car. How are you feeling?
Amazing, isn't it? I'm really excited still. It's just, you know, it's this boy thing, the wind in your hair and about. And of course at Longleat, when I went up to see the lions with Bob, we were in a cage,
yeah, exactly.
And putting meat down the chute. Here there's nothing. And just hanging on so I don't fall out, but it is exciting. And we're with guys that know exactly what they're doing, and I don't intend getting too close, but you've got me on binos.
Excellent.
Hoping you can get a good view.
Good lookout. We'll be there if they do find Africa's largest carnivore.
Mafui's pride at Longleat are locked up in the lion house, ready for head of section Brian Kent to administer their injections.
Well, how do you give a lion a flu jab? Well, I'm up at the lion house with head of section Brian Kent and keeper Bob Trollope to find out. Brian, do you want one of your beautifully prepared syringes? So it goes into the blowpipe. Like that. OK. It must be quite nerve-wracking, Bob. I don't know.
Not for me. He's aiming it.
So you literally just blow the dart into the lion, Brian?
Basically, into the muscle of the back leg.
I mean, this sounds terribly easy, Bob, but does it take quite a lot of practice?
Well, it does take practice, but it's the easiest method that we can use in this situation.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, you'd have a nice crush cage which you could get them into and just, you know, draw the sides in and use a syringe. But that's a good shot from Brian.
That was a very good shot. Brian, I don't think I believed you when you said before that you weren't terribly expert. That looked amazing to me. And exactly the same, presumably, as when we go and have an injection. You know, a little bit of pain and then you forget about it fairly quickly.
Very little. I mean, they hardly notice it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that's it. So over and done with.
Yeah. And what I wanted to ask, maybe you can show me on this dart, Bob, is obviously with a normal syringe, when someone's having an injection, you've got a plunger, haven't you,
Yeah.
to push the drug in. But on this, how does that work?
Well, we still have a plunger.
Yeah.
That's the plunger there, that little black bit.
Yeah.
But behind that is compressed air that
Right.
Brian put in there with that syringe.
Yeah.
Then you've got the drug.
Yeah.
Then you've got this needle.
Yeah.
And on the needle is a little collar.
Yeah.
And that collar is covering a hole.
Right.
And as soon as that point goes into the lion,
Yeah.
that collar moves down, the hole is exposed, and the drug goes into the animal.
Gosh, that's so clever. But, well, I was going to say, how do you then get the dart out? But it seems to have fallen out already.
Well, quite often, if they get up and move about, then the dart will fall out.
Yeah.
But there are other methods that we can use.
Yeah.
One method is we just open the slide slightly.
Yeah.
She would then think that she was going out,
Yeah.
go to the door, and
Yeah.
as she brushes through the gap, it pulls the needle out.
Oh,
So-
that's really clever. So she doesn't even notice it's happening.
Oh, no, you know, that's the easiest method of actually retrieving a dart,
Yeah.
apart from it falling out naturally.
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't want to put a bar or a pole in there to actually knock it out, because that just causes stress.
Absolutely.
So this is the most stress-free way of doing it.
So can she go out now, Brian? Are you
Yeah,
happy
she's
that
fine to
all
go.
went off? And OK, well, should we let you out? Is this who's this?
This is Sky.
Sky. OK, Sky, you can go back out. Off she goes very quickly. I mean, there is a lot of noise, Bob, when this is going on. They obviously know that something's up. Will they be a little bit stressy now for a couple of days, or do they forget it fairly quickly?
Well, once they've gone out and out in their section, they must probably forgotten about it already.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's stressful while we're here doing it. As soon as they're out, they ain't got a care in the world, have they?
Well, Bob, Brian, thank you very much indeed. And now you know how to inject a lion.
There we go. Across the river before, they're in the middle of Africa.
On the Lewa Conservancy out in Kenya, the Longleat keepers are looking for trouble. Head Warden Keith Harris, Darren Beasley from Pets Corner and I are out with a patrol trying to hunt down the pack of killers who are threatening the survival of the rare Grevy zebra. There are 24 lions somewhere in the Conservancy, but 8 have now been fitted with radio collars. Every day, an armed patrol risk life and limb to monitor their movements and their feeding patterns. Michael Tosho is Deputy Head of Security.
Hello, how do you do? How do you do? Hi, Michael, how are you?
Nice to meet you. Morning, Keith.
Morning.
How do you do?
Fine.
Hello there.
Darren here.
Hi. Hello there, I'm Darren.
Hi.
Hi. So you're using this to listen for the lions?
Yes.
And do you think there are some around?
Yes, we have already got a signal of some around.
Okay.
Yes.
So how do we proceed from here? Do we need to get back into the...
We need to get back to the car and drive slowly towards where we are getting the signal from.
Okay.
Yes.
And have you any idea how many lion there might be there?
We think that might be a group of 9 lions.
9 lions?
Yes.
That sounds good.
Darren? Where's me cage? 9 lions, really? There could be up to that many.
Deep in the bush, the lions have the twin advantages of disguise and surprise. Geoffrey Cheggy, Lewa's chief scientist, respects their skills very highly.
So do you think they'll know that we're on our way?
Definitely. I know wherever they are, they know that they've been approached.
It's exciting.
It's starting to get exciting now.
Yeah. Because we're kind of off-road, aren't we?
Yeah, we're in the bush and keep having to dodge these horrible spiny things keep coming by our...
Yeah, we're off-road. We're in where the lions live. Well, join us later in the programme when hopefully we'll finally be with the lions.
A 150 miles further south, Andy Hayton, the head of the Giraffery, has come to the Kidgio Conservancy in pursuit of one of the rarest creatures on the planet, the Rothschild Giraffe. Only 350 of these beautiful animals survive in the wild, so the 14 that Andy looks after at Longleat are a vital reserve for the gene pool of Rothschilds in Africa, and he's really looking forward to seeing them.
It'd be very, very, very interesting to see the giraffe out in the bush today. How they sort of group together, because ours are kind of confined in a small area, finding out how they kind of live together, how they the group kind of cohabits as such. I mean, they're highly endangered animals.
When the Conservancy was set up here in 1997, there were no Rothschild giraffes left here at all because poachers had hunted down the very last one a year before. The Kenya Wildlife Service responded to the emergency by granting permission for 8 Rothschilds to be relocated from a national park so that the subspecies would survive in part of its natural territory. But catching a wild giraffe is always a dangerous business. The capture team has to dart the chosen animal with a sedative to slow her down, but the necessary dose will kill her if they can't catch her quickly and reverse its effects. Giraffes can run at 35 miles an hour and grow to a height of 5.5 meters, so it's vital that this female doesn't fall badly and hurt herself. The capture looks rough, but having skillfully brought her down, the rangers put a hood over her eyes to keep her calm. She's then given an antidote to get her back on her feet, but that's when it all goes wrong. Now that she can see, she panics, and she could hurt herself or even one of the team. Eventually, they get the hood back on, and this giraffe, at least, has been safely captured. 8 wild Rothschild giraffe females were caught like this and moved to Kidgio to start a new life and help to save their kind from extinction. All they need now is a male, and fortunately, a sanctuary near Nairobi has one they raised in captivity. At 3 years old, Morley was a favourite with the keepers there, but it was the natural time for him to leave his mother, so he too set off on a 110-kilometre journey to Kidgio. The herd, or tower to use the correct term, has been settled here for 3 years now, and Andy Hayton is eager to learn anything he can to enrich the lives of the Rothschilds back at Longleat. We'll join him again later on.
The Grevy zebra is one of Kenya's most endangered animals. In the past 30 years, their numbers have dropped by 90% in the wild, and part of the problem is that they're very tasty. Earlier on, I joined Keith Harris and Darren Beasley from Longleat on a dangerous expedition into the bush with the Lewa Conservancy's chief scientist, Geoffrey Cheggy, in search of the zebra's #1 enemy.
We're out in Lewa where we've been tracking one of Africa's most deadly animals, the lion. And I understand that just over there in front of us is where the lions are hiding, which is why we're talking in hushed tones. Now, Cheggy, what's the plan? Obviously, we've been looking for them this morning with the guys from Longleat. What's the plan now, and where are they?
We are going to approach them. They are kind of directly ahead of us. We are going to approach them and then see what they are doing, how many they are, and then if you are going to be in a position to collect the scat, we will do it.
So presumably to collect the scat or the feces, we have to get out to collect it.
We have to get out.
Did you hear that?
We have to get out, but not to make that decision. It is going to be based on the way the lions are going to react. Okay. If they kind of pull off, then we are going to jump out. If they don't, then you've got to decide what will be the next course of action.
Okay.
Yes.
How are you guys feeling?
Just knowing that they're not far from me here, it's really exciting.
Really
and
exciting.
the fact that we're sat up here like this, with the wild lions around us, it's great. So let's go.
There they are. Look at the cubs. So, Cheggy, how many lions do you think we have here?
I think we've got at least 9.
But we haven't seen the male yet, so do you think he's still hiding in there?
He could be there, or maybe he could be in another bush. But he must be around.
Darren, how do you feel? We're just a matter of feet away from wild lions.
I was flicking away on my camera like a proper tourist. It just seemed 2 eyes were peering through the thicket at me. And honestly, it's 20 foot away. She was watching us all the time. But I'm amazed that they disappeared. Just gone.
As you said, they kind of melt into the grass, don't they?
It's not warm just because of the sun. It's warm generally.
And how often do you think they feed? How often do you think they kill that in a week, say? Do you know?
I would say maybe every 2 or 3 days. That's when they go for a kill. But sometimes they go for it opportunistically. But if they come across a wounded animal, they will not leave it.
And Keith, can I ask what you think of their coats and the shape of bodies and things?
They were that's one of the things I was interested to see what condition they were in. And they actually looked very good condition. A bit thinner than ours, but perhaps ours were overfed, and this is the sort of thing we have to talk about when we get home.
So this is all the stuff that you'll be able to take back to Longleat.
It's a shame we haven't seen the male, because I'd like to see how battle-scarred he is. Because, the older and the higher they get, obviously the more fighting they have to do. So it's very interesting. But sadly, we're not going to see him, I don't think.
But what I find amazing is that he could literally he's probably looking at us. Do you think the male is looking at us now, Jackie? Or
he could be somewhere, and maybe he knows that we're here. He's just keeping lying low.
Is he quite lazy, or do you think he's just?
He could be, or maybe he's just full.
Just full. Yeah. Hopefully not from the last keepers that came along. Now, obviously, Cheggy, apart from just the kind of monitoring the lions, one of the things you wanted to do was to collect some scat or some faeces to analyse it. You don't think that's going to be possible today?
It may not be. It is not going to be possible today because we do not have any scat. We have not been lucky enough to get any scat.
Did I hear a sigh of relief from you, Darren?
I can't see the lions, let alone the toilet.
That we didn't have to get out, but a pretty memorable safari, would you say?
It's been great. Fantastic.
It's too dangerous to collect any more data, as we can't see the male, and the grass is too thick to walk in safely. But it's clear that the lions have been eating the zebra. They appear to be safe from the pride today, but Cheggy's team is looking into how they can prevent further depredation of the Grevies. Relocation is just one possibility.
If we do not act now, it might be too late to act at the end of this year. So this is the time to act.
Meanwhile, I'm back at Longleat in Pet's Corner, and keeper Sam Magruder tells me that I'm not missing out on anything, because this parrot comes from Africa.
Well, he's called Spike. He's what you call a silver African grey, and he's 19 years old.
Wow.
And he's quite a nervous bird, and we've only recently just started bringing him outside in the actual bird show.
So when you say nervous bird, how can you tell a bird's nervous?
Well, there's several things you look out for. Most obvious one is they will actually shake, and they sort of they hunch themselves down.
So a little bit like he's doing now. He does look a bit...
And they'll actually fluff their feathers up quite a bit as well, just like that. But seeing that at the moment he's outside on his own, that's why he's a little bit more nervous than usual. Because normally he's got all the other parrots to keep him company.
So when you're starting to bring a bird on to take part in the show, what are you doing? How are you getting him sort of trained up?
Well, once we've got them used to actually just being outside, what we can do is we pop them on one of the perches, a spare perch, and they'll just sit there through a show.
Right.
Just watching everything, learning from other parrots, getting used to all the different sights, sounds and smells.
Yeah.
And very recently, over the past few days, we've actually, during the show, we've been bringing them out the front.
Yeah.
And just literally just getting everyone, asking everyone to clap him and cheer him. And he's doing absolutely brilliant with that. And a good sign is he's a brilliant mimic. But as he's nervous, he doesn't tend to mimic very often. But a brilliant sign is when we bring him out the front, he's actually doing a little wolf whistle sometimes.
Really?
The crowd likes that.
Yeah.
And the fact that we'll give him a peanut and he'll actually eat it as well out the front, another good sign.
So that's a sign that he's sort of feeling more relaxed
he's getting used to it, yeah.
Well, we hope that he continues and becomes a star of the Parrot Show. Sam, thank you very much indeed. And here's what's coming up on the rest of today's programme.
Halt! Who goes there? The rangers in Kenya have to stop the poaching.
wildlife will be gone. It really will be gone unless somebody and the world does something about it.
I'll find out how the other tigers at Longleat have reacted to Shandy's death. I'll also be checking out the family silver. And can you believe this? What the servants used to wear.
In fact, it was very difficult for foreigners to tell the company from the footman.
While those uniforms were still being worn at Longleat, Rothschild Giraffe were being hunted with abandon out in Kenya. And within 100 years, there were none left at all on the Kijio Conservancy. But under a conservation initiative backed by the Kenyan government, 8 wild female Rothschilds and Morley, a young captive-born male, were released into the area in 2002 to start a new breeding herd. Chris Campbell-Claus is the director of the Kijio Conservancy. And 3 years on, he's delighted at how the herd has settled in.
It's hugely rewarding to us because giraffe numbers here are quite healthy now. We've got 13, having moved 9 originally. So we had 5 calves born almost as soon as they all arrived here. Sadly, one mother died giving birth, so we lost one of the original that we moved. 13 giraffe is 13 more than there were before. And if we're in another breeding herd in another location in Kenya, it gives an added advantage, really, for the whole country to be preserving Rothschild giraffe.
As the head keeper of the Rothschilds at Longleat, Andy Hayton is very keen to see them in their natural habitat. So he's out in the bush with Chris, looking for Morley and the rest of the herd. They soon come across a small group enjoying their favourite snack, acacia leaves. Giraffes spend between 16 and 20 hours browsing every day, and it's taken its toll on the trees.
Those acacias that are being ring-barked currently by the giraffe is quite a worry to us. It's a particular species, the Acacia xanthophylla, and they've taken a liking to that bark, and we don't know why. Maybe it's a mineral deficiency. We've had to protect some of the trees, actually, with chikungunya around the stems.
It's funny because back at Longleat, we've actually, a lot of the big oaks, they're all protected with chikungunya to keep the giraffe off them, just in case they were worried. And that was done years and years and years ago. So obviously the giraffe back home did it as well.
And it's a mineral deficiency with it, is it? Don't know.
Could well be. When we actually go out and cut browse, and we hang browse, they'll strip the bark off the browse as well. Really? They'll eat the leaves and they'll take the bark off too.
Yeah, I mean,
Andy's keen to learn more about the diet of wild giraffes. So he and Chris take a close look at the not-so-delicate delicacy. Acacia thorns are vicious and can grow up to 8 centimetres long.
There are ants live in these little gourds like these.
So the ants rush out to protect the tree then?
Yeah, the little guys there. He rushed out and rushed in again. Now, he'll come out, and if say, a giraffe will come in and try and feed off this tree, once he's been rattled like that, the ant will come out and excrete a fluid that the giraffe doesn't like, and also the ants will go onto the nose and the muzzle of the giraffe. Mm-hmm. And it irritates the giraffe enough to want to move away and go for
another bush.
Another bush, like that one.
Finding out about this has given Andy an idea.
These bushes, to a point, are a little bit like hawthorn. And what would be nice to try is if we could start some, small areas, or large areas, of planting hawthorn in the giraffe reserves. Get them established and allow the giraffes to browse them, and it just give such a good look.
Back on the road, Chris thinks he spots Morley, and Morley's quick to spot them. Giraffes have excellent eyesight, and, with the advantage of their height, can see a human coming up to 2 kilometres away. Morley is now 6 years old, and a fully grown giraffe, but he was raised in captivity.
I reckon Morley would come in right to the vehicle.
Really? Just through hand feed?
I think what we'd do, if we'd rattle out the container of nuts, and I think if he heard that, he would come in. Morley? Morley? Come on, boy. He's heard it now. He's looking straight at us, I see, so he'll come just now.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to sort of compare his condition to ours. I mean, we've seen quite a lot of zebra and what have you, eland so far. and we haven't really seen a poor one. You know, they all look in such good condition.
Now what we can do, Andy, just put it in the flat of your hand.
Flat of the hand.
Yeah. And if you want him to stick his tongue out, take individual ones, but we'll give him a proper feed first.
Yeah.
And then you can see his tongue go, come on, boy, come on. Come on. Come on. There we go. When he came to us 2.5 years ago, he was about 3 to 4 feet shorter than this.
Really?
Yeah.
It's nice, isn't he? Handsome chap.
You know, they stay amazingly clean, too.
Yeah.
What I think is fantastic is the fact that he behaves like a wild giraffe for 365 days of the year, and this is just an occasional treat that we give him. I mean, it's certainly not dependent on us in any way at all.
A giraffe's tongue can be more than 40 centimetres long and very useful for grasping their food.
But to tackle those acacia, I mean, you just wouldn't want to stick your tongue into an acacia bush, would you? There's no way. It's...
Andy feeds giraffes every day back at Longleat, and Morley seems entirely comfortable with him too.
Morley, he's really nice. Quahiri, our bull back at Longleat. I wouldn't kind of want to sit here doing this.
You wouldn't?
It's nice seeing them out there. It's nice comparing them to ours, you know. It's...
And the fact that now he's going away and behaving like a totally wild
he's got
animal.
to be a giraffe.
Yeah.
Back at Longleat, they're still mourning the death of Shandy, the Bengal tigress, who had to be put down by Safari Park vet Duncan Williams after her cancer came back.
I personally think the kind of thing we'd put to sleep there rather than bring her around and let her suffer for the next few days, because she is suffering and she's not going to live that much longer now. I'll go and get an injection for her.
Shandy's death was a big blow to everyone who knew her, but I've been wondering how it's affected the other tigers she lived with for 16 years. So I've come up to the Tiger House to ask Keeper Bob Trollope and Head of Section Brian Kent how Sonar and Kadu have reacted.
Initially, I think they were wondering where she was.
Yeah.
But it does seem to have settled down quite well, to our favour, in fact, because these seem to be much more relaxed now. Maybe it's because there's one less tiger in the area.
Because they're quite solitary in the wild,
Normally
aren't they?
they are solitary animals. The fact that there's only two now in the section, they've got even more space.
Yeah.
And they do seem a bit more relaxed, don't they?
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Good. And I suppose, I mean, there's no... Again, silly question, there's no way that they could have caught it, that this isn't a contagious...
No. This was a cancerous growth in her mammaries.
Right.
And that's what it was, unfortunately.
But she was an old tiger.
She was 19 years old.
Wow.
She was getting on in tiger years.
Yeah.
So, you know, you expect ailments to arise in older animals.
Yeah.
You don't quite come to terms with it when it's so quick. That's one of the problems. You know, because we've had Sonar with his problem with his pancreas.
Yeah.
Could do with her arthritis.
Yeah.
And this was just so
Just
sudden.
out of the blue.
Yeah.
Well, I know, though, that she did have a fantastic life here. She couldn't have been better looked after and more spoilt by you two.
Oh, yeah, very much.
And I'm just very sorry that she's gone, but we've got two fabulous tigers here, and we shall obviously be keeping our eye on them throughout the series. I'm very sorry, but thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
Back out in Africa, an anti-poaching unit is on patrol in the Lewa Conservancy. Here, as in many other African countries, a war is being waged against poachers. Rhino horn is particularly valuable on the black market, with each horn fetching up to $3,000, which is several times what an average African earns in a year. With such high stakes, poachers are prepared to take huge risks, so the patrol needs to be armed to fight back. Michael Tosho is Lewa's deputy head of security.
I have done anti-poaching patrols for, this is the 10th year now, and it is very dangerous. When we come across poachers on our patrol, first, what we have to see is to make sure if they are armed or not. Because if they are armed, we fight with them. If they are not armed, we arrest them. None of us has been ever killed, but one of our rangers was injured by poachers in the previous years. And it was a fight that took us a long time, almost an hour, crossfire. And, you know, we got the poachers in a very difficult place, and they tried to ambush us. So it is very, very dangerous to work in the anti-poaching unit.
Poaching reached its height in the 1970s and 80s. The slaughter decimated animal populations across Africa, and the black rhino was hunted to the point of extinction. In just 2 decades, man had nearly wiped out a species that had been on Earth for over 45 million years. Elephant also paid an appalling price, as more than 500,000 were butchered, with Kenya losing 80% of its herds. Lewa was a private cattle ranch in those days, and the then manager, Ian Craig, witnessed a massacre that changed his life and Lewa's future forever.
Single incident that made the biggest impression on me was watching 8 armed guys killing elephant one evening. A herd of probably 100-odd elephant. We were sitting on a hill. We saw these guys open fire on them. They killed 8 elephant whilst we were there. Then it got dark. We continued to watch them throughout the night, just watch their fire and brought government in the morning. But this was in the middle of an area that belongs to the Samburu, and this was an external tribe that had come in, were killing these elephants. And hey, it was just a big wake-up call.
In response to the carnage, Ian turned Lewa into a heavily protected wildlife conservancy. It's now home to 4 herds of elephant and is one of the few places in Kenya to successfully breed black rhino. But Ian's in no doubt about the knife edge they're on.
You know, let's put it into figures. Kenya had 20,000 rhino in 1970. Today we've got 400. I mean, actually think about what 20,000 dead rhino looks like. I mean, it's a mountain. And you know, this wildlife will be gone. It really will be gone unless somebody in the world does something about it.
Today's security patrols play a vital part in protecting these animals. The units often stay in the bush for up to a month at a time, lying low in secret locations to give them the element of surprise. They communicate through a system of signs.
Okay, the signal from a poacher is I just point this way. This goes straight to a poacher. By doing that, this.
The patrol isn't just on the lookout for poachers, though. In a territory of over 60,000 acres, an important part of their work is to find and monitor herds of both rhino and elephant to check they're alive and healthy. Expert trackers to a man, they can read the terrain like a book.
Like here now, you can see the footmarks. These are the giraffes. The giraffe has gone this way. This shows us the buffaloes have been here as well. This is for a war dog. And you can keep on identifying so many things as you keep on walking.
Suddenly, Michael gives the signal for danger. Something or someone is up ahead. And we'll come back when the patrol know what they're facing.
Visitors to Longleat House are always impressed by the vast display of treasures on show, but in fact, there's a great deal that they don't see. I'm going to be allowed into the vaults later on, but before that, archivist Kate Harris is going to show me another extraordinary collection she's been working on. We're looking at some magnificent, well, I want to say costumes, Kate, because they look like very elaborate fancy dress, but I gather these were practical staff's clothing.
Well, they're livery clothing, not really practical, because this
Right.
is state livery. This is the very best
Okay.
clothes for the butler, the under-butler, the footman and the coachman.
Now, yellow and black seems to be a theme. Was this a sort of family colour?
If you look at the footman's knot,
right,
which would have been worn on their left shoulder, you can see that the family coat of arms includes this quarter, which is striped, gold and black. So the livery
it's
colours,
echoed.
the livery colours derive from the coat of arms.
So who would have worn this coat here?
Well, inside the sleeve, the whole story is revealed.
Oh, look at that. It's like primary school, isn't it?
The last person to wear it was a man called Horn in May 1909. He actually left service in February 1916 to join the Navy in the First World War. We've been able to find all these folk in our servants' wages
these
records.
coats would have been passed down from staff member to staff member. So clearly they're very well made. They lasted.
Yes, they're beautifully made. And they get handed down for as much as 30 to 40 years.
This one looks a little bit more faded and battered.
This one hasn't been handed around. It's been worn by one very important person. You'll see inside the right sleeve there, he's called Mr. French. This was the coachman.
Right, and the coachman was very important.
Really important. And he was in service, we know from our wages records, from 1868 until 1904, and we think he died with his boots on.
Heavens. So he didn't put any weight on then, he could keep wearing that.
I think it's length of service that
That
causes
just
the
faded it,
fading.
Not just being outside with the horses.
No.
And what would they have worn with these very elaborate coats?
Mr. French would have worn a wig and a tricorn.
Right.
But what we've got here is a different sort of headgear. Could you hold the lid?
Oh, look at
This is the footman's cocked hat.
Wow.
Complete with livery buttons, silver braid and silver tassels.
These
Can you see?
wonderful tassels at the end here.
This is made of black beaver. They would also have had a black waistcoat with silver braid again. You'll see how 18th century in style they are.
Is that... Because it looks like it slightly kicks out at the bottom.
does
Is
indeed.
that classic 18th century,
Yes,
is
they're
it?
modelled on 18th century court dress.
Well, I was going to say, because they must have looked almost indistinguishable from the family members in you know, their sort of smart evening dress with their smart guests around.
Yes, in the 18th century that would have been the case. In fact, it was very difficult for foreigners to tell the company from the footman. Not obviously in the 19th century when nobody went around dressed like that. Do you like the silk stockings, the cloth stockings?
Magnificent, with the calf shape in them.
Yes, and I think large feet. Size 10 or so.
Oh, I'm not sure. They don't look a lot bigger than mine, actually.
And black plush trousers, knee breeches, fastened with cut steel buckles, and again, with silver tassels and silver braids.
So how often would they have worn this? Would have this been simply on special occasions, sort of once a week for Sunday lunch? What?
Yeah, not really Sunday lunch, but definitely that's the case. We know from our livery books that they get undress livery, full dress livery and working clothes.
Right.
Some of the garments are much more practical. This, for instance, is a practical garment. This is a box coat. So this is a garment for life. This is a really serious thing.
It's extraordinary fabric. It feels almost like a very stiff felt.
It is a woven fabric, but you're right, it's beaten like felt, and you'll see that it doesn't need edging.
Oh, yes, so it won't fray at all.
They're fantastically heavy.
Absolutely.
With nice velvet collars, and again, livery buttons.
What's so lovely about looking at these things is it is suddenly bringing to life, you know, those old days in the house. You can sort of imagine people wandering around with their glittering buttons and holding trays. It does bring history to life. It's wonderful. Thank you very much, Kate.
Out in the bush back in Kenya, the anti-poaching unit is on high alert.
Be very careful.
Ranger Michael Tosho signals danger ahead. That either means poachers or wild animals.
It is very dangerous. Because of the wildlife animals, you know, we are protecting wildlife, but if you come across them in wrong places or before you see them at a distance, then they will charge you and They are very dangerous, they can even kill.
This time, it's elephants, but they're still dangerous.
Nobody should make any noise. And let's look at them, and we will now go downward. It's very dangerous because we are very close to them.
Elephants can charge this far in seconds, but despite the risks, getting close to check on them is a vital part of the patrol's work.
Okay, like this, and now you can see there's three big bulls and cows. They are relaxing. If you see them feeding like this, they are relaxing. They like the place. They know they are in a very safe place. Because when they are in places that pushing has been going on, they cannot be in a group as they are. You can see them scattering everywhere. Yes, I'm happy with what I found today, because like these elephants, they seem to be in a very good condition.
Because of the courage and dedication of the security teams, Lewa hasn't lost a single elephant or rhino to poaching since Ian Craig set up the conservancy.
I really want to present a message to communities that every single animal is important, because I believe it is in the long term, even in the short term. Poaching issue is really, it's a straightforward criminal activity where, you know, you've got greedy individuals from across the whole globe coming back to probably a pretty humble guy with an illegal firearm with the capacity to kill wildlife. And it's an opportunity, he's an opportunist. And it might not all be his fault, you know, he hasn't got an economy to work to. But we can't accommodate poaching. I mean, Kenya's down to 400 rhino. We can't allow a single rhino to be poached here.
Having showed me all those fabulous Longleat uniforms earlier on, curator Kate Harris has brought me down into the vaults. There's some priceless silver here that hasn't been seen by the public since King George III gave it to the first Marquess nearly 250 years ago.
Yes, we're having big permanent display cases made, and one of the cases is going to be dedicated to rotating displays of silver, so I'm trying to make decisions in advance about what sort of things to select and what to show with them.
So tell me about these, because these are incredible. They're huge for a start.
Yeah, these are a really obvious choice because they tell a story. Obviously, in a historic house, you can show plate, as it were, for use in a dining room. That's one good thing you can do. Yeah. But we usually have history attached to objects, and they're associated with the people who own the house. And this is particularly true of these two 18th century tureens. These were given to the first Marquess of Bath by George III in April 1769, which is the year after he became both Foreign and Home Secretary to the King.
So these were a gift from the King?
Yes.
These are a royal gift?
They're described as white plate for his lordship's table, and they came with 6 dozen knives and forks and a full set of dessert knives and forks and spoons and the rest.
Wow.
Yeah.
So these would have been intended for use, not just display?
Oh, no, absolutely for use, to, if you like, endorse the importance of the office that the Marquess then held. They're made by a really fine London maker called Thomas Hemming.
And solid silver?
Yes.
Absolutely beautiful. Is this a crest here?
Yes, that's you see the King's initials?
Oh, yes.
On the crown and the GR and the garter round.
So that's proof that they definitely were
Yes, and as I said, they're recorded in the Jewel House delivery book as well, so we know exactly when they came.
They are magnificent, but I have to say, if we move down here, this piece has really caught my eye, because I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before.
I don't think you will ever again either. This is one of the purchases, one of the many, many purchases of the second Viscount Weymouth from a Huguenot silversmith called Paul Crespan. Mm-hmm. He patronised him throughout his solvent life.
Right. He was a big spender then, the second?
He was. The second Viscount Weymouth really loved nice things. Mm-hmm. This actually went with him when he retired from Longleat and went to live in the village of Horningsham. This actually went with him. It's recorded in the inventory drawn up after his death.
And again, what would this have been used for?
This is another soup tureen.
Right.
We usually display it with the ladle, with a snail ladle, but that's not the one that was originally made for it, though it is the one that, another one that the second Viscount commissioned.
And these other things here, were these also his?
Yes, I mean, this makes the point. He went to the devil in a big way. This is some of his personal plate. This is even his shaving bowl. We've got soap.
This is for shaving?
This is the utilitarian silver with which he surrounded himself.
Unbelievable, isn't it, to have something so extravagant just for shaving in? So just to get an idea of what his kind of personal expenditure on, say, you know, shaving things and soap dishes. Have you got any idea what he would
we
spend?
do know that on what he just refers to as a set of plate between 1730 and 1733, he spent the equivalent of nearly £102,000 with Paul Crispin.
Crikey.
How much this costs, I'm not quite sure yet. But this really epitomises his taste. It really is at the very avant-garde of the Rococo.
Well, they are going to be amazing when they're on display, but it's great to be able to see them so close up. Kate, thank you very much, and good luck with them, with your display cases.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm afraid that's just about all we've got time for on this very special edition of Animal Park. But before we go, I couldn't resist coming up to say my goodbyes to a very hungry Morley the giraffe. And a very special giraffe he is as well. This trip to Kenya really has been incredible, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed being out here. Here's what's coming up on the next Animal Park. Like that, don't you?
Out in Africa, the keepers from Longleat take part in a mission to save a giant bull elephant.
The stuff of nightmares is waiting for us in Pet's Corner.
And how on earth do you persuade a reluctant lion into a travel cage?
All that and more in the next Animal Park.